we're back on the drive at 5 on the intellectualradio.com/iHeart radio station. My next guest is a sports author, journalist, and PR consultant. He is also promoting his new book, and he has a variety of books. So please welcome back to the one and only Anthony Swarton.
Hey, good to
Thank
see you again, Roman, and thank you for having me back on the platform, and to your audience out there, who everyone's having a good start to their day, good start to their week.
No problem. So please give intellectualradio.com/iHeart radio station an update since the last time you was on the drive.
Wow. Well, since I was on last fall, it's just been a whirlwind, like anybody, working hard, working smart. Most recently, spending extended time in central Illinois, in the area where I was born, Bloomington, Illinois, where I was the one of the featured authors for the Bloomington Juneteenth Festival, speaker for Alpha and Omega Apostolic Church the very next day. I was also a keynote speaker for the Lincoln, Illinois festival hosted by the Hunt For Foundation. And then this past Saturday, did a book signing at Bob's Bay. And that's it. I tell you what, it's always great getting back. A lot of people don't realize I was born in Bloomington, Illinois. So even though I'm based in Atlanta, Illinois is still near and dear. And I'm really excited with July 9th. I'll be in Birmingham, Alabama at the Negro Southern League Museum doing a benefit book signing featuring Nothing Minor, which covers not only minor league baseball, but an insert on their work, as well as one of the umpire supervisors who, even though he's based in Denver, Colorado, is an Illinois native, specifically Bloomington. So Illinois is being represented as fully as possible, definitely.
All right. So tell us about your books.
Wow. Well, we'll start from left to right. The book on the left, 9 Stories of Faith, Volume 1, is probably my bestseller. All of us can identify living with a challenge. Some people live with challenges each and every day, whether it's physical health, mental health, life after incarceration, things along those lines. And I was very fortunate that the people who opened up not only talked through the lens of their faith, which is either Christianity, Hinduism, or Islam, but they talked about what best practices in health and wellness are they using, the utilization of their support network, and how they've changed their way of thinking to live powerful and positive lives. And for the Chicago area spin on it, the very first chapter dealing with a physical health issue, multiple sclerosis, the person who I talked to lives here in the Chicago area. The book in the middle, Nothing Minor, focuses on my coverage of minor league baseball. I was very intentional with covering as many African-American players as possible. As we've spoken previously, those percentages have dwindled to maybe 7%. But in addition to the game coverage and just capturing their narratives, not only what they've learned within the game of baseball, but how those can be applied towards big picture. So one of the more telling quotes by Travis Demerit, who was called up to the Atlanta Braves, got sent down because they found a couple, things that he had to work on. But he said, you have to filter out the noise. And that's not just fans talking crazy. Sometimes, like bigger picture, you have to filter out the noise of people who will not speak life into your dreams, not speak life into your aspirations. And sometimes filtering out the noise means you have to stop yourself from getting in your own way. So when you think about, just a game of baseball, there are life lessons there. And as I noted earlier, there's a special section on the Negro Southern League's Museum in Birmingham, Alabama, which actually has a larger set of archives than the museum in Kansas City. And being able to do a benefit to help support their great programs for, keeping the history and keeping the culture alive, and hopefully using that as a bridge to get more African Americans involved in the game, whether it's playing, whether it's scouting, general manager, it might be the next owner, you just don't know. And then the book on the right, Deeper Than Your Deepest Sleep, Thoughts in Love with Joseph Snowden, is for the poetry lovers. And the backstory behind the title is back in 2014 when Dr. Maya Angelou passed. She was on the faculty where I went to college, Wake Forest University, for a little bit over 30 years. And I was fortunate to have attended that service. But the invite came in the name of Joseph. And I kid around, like, if you go from Andrew to Adam, Andrew to Alex, okay, but Andrew to like the other end of the alphabet. And me being the youngest of 2, and probably how us younger kids are, we get creative and we get in a little bit of trouble. So of course, when I asked my parents, they had something they had to share with me. I'm not going to say they threw the kitchen sink at me, but they threw a couple things that I won't repeat. But doing some research, I do have a distant relative by the name of Joseph. And what we did is The poetry is based on the action of love. So whether it's people in and out of your life, love that you have for community, for family, but unlike a lot of poetry, the beginning of each chapter is a portion of the actual conversation. That way the reader knows the context and they can draw better connections with the poems. So those are the 3 books that I've written. And of course, as anybody who's a writer, you're always working on something. So just be ready for this summer and this winter. There's going to be 2 things coming out.
So you got something cooking in the fire.
I do. And the more immediate cooking in the fire is probably the Author's Mixtape audiobook series that I'm blessed to do with Third Level Entertainment and Canis Major Digital, who actually has ties to the Chicago area. And all it is if they're fans of music, spoken word, but it's all freestyle. So literally everything we do, unlike a lot of people who freestyle and they write everything before they come in, we do everything start to finish in an individual studio session, coming up with the topics, going ahead one take, going in the booth, and then they'll lay down the tracks for some of the ones that are instrumental. So if people are used to streaming from platforms like Tidal, Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, Shazam, Deezer, Pandora, if you literally type in my name, Andrew Snorton, it'll pop up, and then you can go ahead and stream and share accordingly. And I have to give shouts to my co-author on the 2 most recent editions, Chris Kinder, just amazing lyricist. So so those are the things.
So I just want to pick your brain for a couple of things that's been going on in the news. One is historically Black colleges and universities. HBCU sports are becoming more popular and is grabbing the attention to sports channels like ESPN and others. Why you think the popularity is coming from and now starting to, become
a little bit more mainstream?
Yeah, mainstream.
It's easy because it's hot right now. And I'm just going to be blunt. For the mainstream, for so many years, they didn't even give HBCUs the time of day unless it was the Bayou Classic that was on NBC or a couple others. It wouldn't. But now,
But the Bayou Classic recently stopped airing in
right,
NBC.
on NBC. Yeah, I don't know if State Farm is still the corporate sponsor or not. But in more recent years, honestly, on the lens of football, is because of the visibility of Deion Sanders and the fact that this is his first head coaching job on that level, and you win 11 out of 13 games. I don't care what level you're on, you're doing a DARN good job. So in most recent years, Sanders visibility, different athletes, and even people point to Chris Paul, but a lot of people don't realize Chris Paul's older brother went to Hampton. And Chris is finishing his degree at Winston-Salem State, even though the 4 semesters he was at Wake Forest. He was on the dean's list twice. So I think what's good is people who are more visible are utilizing their platform to say, hey, these schools, these institutions, Black folk have known for years, number one, that's the only place people could go. But number 2, your best and brightest get an opportunity where predominantly white institutions will not give you a shot. And I'll go ahead and say, as I've said this before in other interviews, if it weren't for the advocacy of a number of our historically Black college and university alums, you think of obviously Martin Luther King Jr., but Jesse Jackson from North Carolina A&T, and others, we might not be at the institutions where we are right now, or we wouldn't have gotten there as quickly and in numbers if it weren't for the advocacy of HBCUs. So it's great that they're getting more attention. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Chicago-based Black College Sports Group 360, who's been on the cutting edge when last year doing the HBCU Diamond Classic Series I was a part of in Nashville, Tennessee, at the AAA ballpark, the affiliate for the Milwaukee Brewers, the AA affiliate of the Texas Rangers in Frisco. So there have been entities that have been ahead of the curve, but mainstream is capturing it because now all of a sudden you have, quote, visible people who are using their platform, and now all of a sudden it's what's hot right now. And but that you can say that for a number of things regarding mainstream when it comes to African American culture and African American institutions. But I'm just going to leave it there. It's hot right now, and now they're seeing how lucrative it can be. But just because they're seeing the lucrative nature of it, it doesn't necessarily mean they're getting the narrative correct.
What you mean the narrative?
Oh my goodness, mainstream media. We know how mainstream media works. Just because there is a face that looks like you or me, it doesn't necessarily mean they make the call regarding what stories get aired. So we all know how it works. The news editors make up their minds as to what they want to push. And when you go into mainstream and the majority of news editors do not look like you or me, look at what's always pushed when it comes to African American, Spanish speaking, things along those lines. Look at what is regularly pushed. Every once in a while, be a little blip like, okay, this is a fluff or feel good story. We know how things are done. I'll just go ahead and take it a step further just through the lens of sports journalism. And in 2019, the first year I covered a major college football team, a Power Five conference school in the ACC, the first time there was someone else other than me that looked like me doing post-game interviews was the next to last home game of the season. And I can tell you some of the questionable questions that, quote, credible journalists ask, but they're given free rein on doing that. So when it comes to capturing a narrative, I'll put it to you like this. There's some who get it right, and there's some who push the same old, and it's leaving bits and pieces and leaving gaps in there. And that's why it's so important. And I've said this before on any platform. Number one, to anybody out there, whatever, radio, podcasting, blogging, whatever, we always talk about the size of the platform. The most important thing you have to realize is you have a platform. Use it accordingly and appropriately and consistently. Those are things that have to be done. I've seen it firsthand. I can talk with my colleague David Grubb of Hard in the Paint Sports, who will tell you nonsense that we have seen when people ask off the wall questions that have nothing to do with the matter at hand because they've had free license to run slipshod. I mean, and I'm being real conservative, when you have just in sports media alone, maybe 85% of the people who cover do not look like the majority of athletes they're covering. Sometimes they're throwing in some nonsense to try to show a lack of intelligence, a lack of preparedness, a lack of transferable skills.
I'm glad you brought that up because the percentages of blacks playing hockey, black players playing hockey, has grown to a historic percentage last year and this year. According to the USA Today, 97% of the NHL is white, while the other 3% is made up of different ethnicities. It was not 3%. And the last time we talked, it was 1%, but now it grew to 3%. Of the 3% of the remaining ethnicities, 26 players are black. 20 of the 26 black hockey players are from Canada, while 6 are African American. Do you think hockey is slowly becoming a black sport?
Slowly. And people forget the impact of Willie O'Ree, who was the first person to really break through. But in more contemporary times, here's the thing with hockey and a number of those sports. One of the key variables is the cost. You got to pay for so much of the equipment and things along those lines. So just like we talked about in certain aspects of baseball, there's a financial barrier. So the question is, what is the NHL and what are other developmental leagues, the AHL, the AHL, which is the American Hockey League, ECHL, East Coast Hockey League, what are they doing? Now, I can speak to the work of one of my colleagues based out of Columbus, Ohio, Michael Watson, who has done a lot of groundbreaking work in chipping away in the Columbus area because the Columbus Blue Jackets are there, and his son is actually going to be playing collegiate hockey. I think it's like anything, these sports that are out there are great games to play, and there's so many things, life lessons and what have you. But the question is, how willing are these leagues going to be committed to really developing? And then what type of push are we going to be in these spaces and places, and understanding, yes, even still in 2022, there's still groundbreaking that needs to be done. And I know people don't like to talk about the first this, the first that, first what, guess what? There's still so many firsts out there in sports and beyond that, when we're asking why us, why not us? Why me? Why not me? Or why not you? Because somebody had that why me, why not you, in order for us to be sitting in these spaces and places today.
And speaking of another sport, more African and African Americans are playing soccer, which is a growing trend that also is a growing trend of Black women are becoming like a soccer mom, and while white women are slowly dipping and taking their sons out of the sport. So, what are your thoughts about the Black soccer moms?
Well, I can say from personal experience, my mom was one of those moms. I played soccer growing up. I even lettered in soccer. I think it's good if you go to even like a major league soccer game, especially where I am in Atlanta, Atlanta United. It is like it's awesome and a half. You see your peers of Spanish speaking countries. You see more African Americans or people from the Caribbean. Soccer is a global game, but for so many years it has not had a global look in this country. And I think it's a good thing when you're able to get not only through the lens of ethnic background but gender. And that's one thing that we'd be remiss in not talking about. There is such a need for African American women, Spanish speaking women, women from emerging communities, emerging populations to be in these spaces and places. Their presence is needed, and it is good for the game. It brings in a different audience. It brings in different styles of play. Instead of doing the same old, like we talk about how other sports, football, how it's evolved from just 3 yards in a cloud of dust to where you're airing it out all over the place. Basketball, how it's evolved from instead of just being a half court game, it's a more free flowing game. Evolution and change can be good. It might be difficult. It might be bumpy, but if things are always the same way over and over again, it's just like you're not going to eat the same stale piece of bread. So if you get variety in what you eat, you might as well get variety in what you watch and what you do.
So please give intellectualradio.com/iHeartRadio station how they can get your books and how they can get a hold of you.
Sure. Awesome. All the books that you see here are available online on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. And I usually keep inventory for people who want an individual personalized autograph at authorsnorton@gmail.com. The best way is to stay connected with me on Facebook at the page author, AUTHOR, author Andrew Snorton, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, author A Snorton. And let's see, hopefully I'll be back up here, hopefully sometime in the not too distant future to do an event. But the next big event that I'll be doing for those of you that have relatives and whatnot in Birmingham, Alabama, that will be July 9th from 1 to 3:30 p.m. Central Standard Time at the Negro Southern League Museum in Birmingham. And then we will continue to chip away with different things during the summer and the fall. And, like I said earlier, it's always good to be back where it started. Always good to
Okay.
be back in the state where it started.
All
Definitely.
right, sir. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for coming. That's going to do it for us on the Drive at 5 on Intellectual Radio. Thanks to Earl Winfrey, our executive producer, Wonder behind the scenes. You guys have a wonderful and safe 4th of July. We will return back on the Drive at 5 on July 11th with the doctor himself, Charles Thomas, giving his political analysis on the election. Guys, have a wonderful week.
Hi, I'm Attorney Richard Boykin, and I'm running for Cook County Board President. Cook County is at a crossroads. President Preckwinkle has failed to keep us safe. Gun violence, carjacking, retail thefts, and other crimes have terrorized our neighborhoods, where our children are dying in the streets and families are not getting justice. As a former commissioner, I fought against the regressive soda tax, and we won. And I will make our neighborhoods safer. It's time for real change in Cook County. I ask for your support on June 28th.
Paid for by Friends of Richard Boykin.
My name is Joseph Michael Carr, and I'm running for state rep in the 25th District. The 25th District is my home and where I raise my family. I deeply care about my neighbors and want to see my district thrive. That is why I support safety net programs for families facing economic hardship. I believe housing is a basic right, and everyone should be able to afford a place to live in dignity. I support access to early detection of mental illness because that is the cause of so much pain in our community. I support an end to predatory lending that preys on our most vulnerable. I support funding early childhood education programs that prepare our children for a new workforce. As a small business owner myself, I support entrepreneurship and financial literacy training for those with aspirations to start their own small business. As your state representative, I will be the link to the resources that you need. I am Joseph Michael Carr, and I approve this message. Please vote and punch 72 on Tuesday, June 28th.
Paid for by the Committee to Elect Joseph Michael Carr.